Here we go. So thank you so much again for having me here. I really appreciate your time and attention, and let's go ahead and get cooking since we just have a little bit of time. So this topic on motivation, and someone else in a previous talk mentioned about people knowing what makes other people tick. So I thought that was kind of fun to follow up with that. I know it was in a little different vein, but here we are. So when I submitted this topic to the World Nursing Conference, it was in 2019, before COVID was a reality. And I look at this topic now, and in some ways it seems disingenuous. And I've actually spoken with healthcare professionals who have found it offensive, actually. Since we're in the middle of the pandemic, because how can we not know by now what motivates nurses? How can we not know by now what motivates healthcare professionals when we look at the reality that we've been living around us? So I've been a physical therapist in clinical practice for 30 years. And, my mother was a nurse. And I grew up as a 3, 4, 5 years old. She used to take me to her nursing students' classes. So she used to teach nursing students, and she used to take me to her classes, and I'd sit in the corner of the room. And I remember my best friend at that time was a full-size skeleton that I would sit next to while I was coloring. And I loved that skeleton. I wanted to know more about it. And I asked my mother to start teaching me the names of the bones and the names of the organs when I was very, very young. So I knew I was going to be in healthcare. And as a child, I had very severe asthma, and I was admitted to the peds unit of the local hospital, where my mother was the head nurse on the peds unit. And as a teenager, I watched my mother struggle with burnout as a nurse in her career. She had severe back pain at the time, and as many of you as nurses, as nursing professionals may also have experienced, you went through a bit of an existential crisis also about what it meant to be a nurse, or what it meant for her not to be a nurse if she wasn't in clinical practice anymore. And she decided to leave clinical practice because the pressures of the work where she was were just too great. There are politics involved and of being a head nurse. And, I'm sure a lot of you resonate with those kinds of things. And in a lot of ways, it was heartbreaking for her to leave a clinical practice that she had dedicated over 25 years of her life to. And, I look back at these past 18 months, and it brings back a lot of memories for me of what my mother went through. It's been a bear, hasn't it, this last year for so many of us. And, I predicted this when this pandemic started, and a lot of other people have predicted this too, that after the COVID pandemic is over, the second pandemic will begin, and it'll be of nursing burnout and healthcare burnout and nurses leaving the field. And, I was wrong. I was wrong because it hasn't even taken to the end of the pandemic. And we're looking all around us now, and healthcare professionals are leaving the profession. People who are caring, dedicated people who have suffered immeasurably underneath the bear that we all have been working under. But, as is everything in nature, nothing is ever one-sided, is it? We talk about the yin and the yang of everything. There's two sides to everything. Everything is balanced. And for those of us who are observant, we can see these things. And the hell of the past 18 months has also been filled with scenes of stories and hope, connection, and love, such as what Eileen shared with us a little bit earlier today. And nurses have been there right at the center of it all. Like the nurses have been at the center of this whole situation, helping to glue things together when they've seen the most desperate in our world. So I hope that today I can share some ideas of how we can see more clearly the people that you are, the people that we call nurses, the holistic beings that have so graciously dedicated their lives to helping others in times of both good and not so good. So here we are. When we work with organizations and teams in healthcare, even in the best of times, things can be challenging, can't they? And when we work with folks, we really start to ask people, we liken people's motivational levels and how well teams work together as like a cell signal, as your mobile phone. So we all have these mobile phones that we're walking around with. And, we're looking at how many bars do I have in terms of my connectivity? If I want to make a phone call, how many bars do I have? And so we know that have you ever been talking on your phone and then you're driving along, hopefully not driving and talking at the same time, you've got it on your hands free, but you're driving along, you're talking on your phone, you go through a tunnel, and then you lose connection with whoever it is you're talking to. We call that a blackout zone here in the US. That's a blackout zone. So it's where all of a sudden you've just lost connectivity. And just like your cell phone, there are three primary elements that indicate your team or your organization has or is in a blackout zone. Okay, there's three primary elements. So if you want to jot these down, go right ahead. So the first one is a lack of energy, So, you may have been kind of, I'm talking on your phone and you're walking or you're driving and you go into a blackout zone and wonder, wait, did my phone just die? Did my battery run out? Do I have enough energy even to project the signal in order to have connectivity? So that's one thing that we always look at in a team. Where is the energy? And again, Eileen spoke so nicely about that this morning. And sometimes the energy is too high, by the way. There's a lot of anxiety. The energy is just frazzed out. But other times people are exhausted and they're burned out, and we're having trouble even tapping in to what it is our daily tasks are, never mind being motivated or being engaging. And there are some statistics, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, that the number one indicator of patient mortality is nursing engagement. Number one indicator of whether or not patients die in the hospital is nursing engagement. And so that's like a striking statistic, isn't it? Because we're really talking about how important it is, how important every one of you are in this world. People's lives depend on you being engaged in the work that you do. And engagement is highly driven by our capacity to have energy. So I'm just going to invite everyone, just for 30 seconds, get out of your chair for a second, because we've all been sitting down for way too long. Just get out of your chair, if you can, and just feel into your body for a moment. Notice how you feel. Do you feel sluggish or slack or tense or tight or something like that? So just check in. And I teach people to do this at their nursing stations and hospitals all over the place. But I say, every once in a while, just do one of these. We can do it like a little shake. And just you shake it off a little bit like a dog shaking off water. So do one more shake with me. Kind of do a little shake and then notice how you feel. Has that changed your energy level at all? Has that shifted your state? Have you ever wanted to take your phone, it's not working, just bang it on something and get it working again? Well, that's basically what you just did for your own energy system, right? Just kind of give a little shake. We call that a pattern disruption. It helps to shake up a new way of being about things. So first thing we always look at is a lack of energy. When you're in a blackout zone in your organization or your team, do one of those. Now, the next thing that happens when we are in a blackout zone is this very unclear communication, isn't it? Like, we're talking along, we're like, hi, what would you like for dinner tonight, honey? And they're like, I would love, and then can you pick it up? And make sure you can bring it to, and you're like, what am I picking up for dinner tonight? I have no idea. And you could take a guess, but it could be wrong. You're just not getting the information because the communication is unclear. So in your organizations, when energy drops down, communication becomes very unclear then, doesn't it? You're saying something to someone, you think that they're hearing what you're saying, and then someone does something, you're like, why are they doing that? I didn't ask them to do that, or they didn't ask me to do that, or something. And you realize it was just complete, you're only getting partial messages. And then, of course, the next thing, so that's the second thing, unclear communication. First is lack of energy. Next is unclear communication. The third thing, because it's built on both of those, is lack of understanding. So it's not just what's being said, but it's how it's being said. It's the empathy, it's the compassion with which we're communicating things. And so there's those nuances. And we all know when we get busy, we lose those empathetic or compassionate nuances, don't we? Because I could be communicating something to you, something like, I feel so grateful for being here today with you. Right? I'm communicating those words, but there's no nuance there. There's no emotion behind it, right? The understanding or the empathy isn't alive within it. So when you look at your organizations and your teams, and you start to think about how many cell bars do we have going on right now in our teams. This is a great thing that we teach people to ask each other. We say, oh my God, how many cell bars are you running on right now? I'm running on like 2. Like I am just about checked out and I need to pull it back together. How many cell bars are you running on right now? And it's a great way to take judgment out of our levels of energy, our capacity of communication, and our ability to be empathetic or compassionate because we don't have enough energy and we don't have enough information. So hopefully you can kind of see how it works that way. So I suggest that this may be a framework for you to be able to talk with one another around your nursing stations and on the floors and in the units you're talking to. Hey, I've only got 2 bars up right now. I need a break. I need to go recharge. And then I'd come back with 5 bars and we can have a better conversation about this later on. This leads to what we call the motivational hierarchy. So let's talk about energy for a second, since that's the primary issue. So if we can, a lot of times the way we clear up the compassion and the empathy and we get better connection is to go back to the foundation of where are we spending our energy. So we talk about what we call the motivational hierarchy. So at the bottom of the hierarchy is what we call being motivated away from something, okay? Motivated away from something. Now, what is this? This is what we've been living in for the last 18 months, by the way. For the last 18 months, we've been motivated away from people dying. Like in frank, speak, when we have our floors overflowing with people suffering from COVID-19, and we have all the other things that we're dealing with also, right? We are motivated away from people dying because that's something we do not want. Now, when we're motivated away from something, there's a lot of initial energy. Like if a tiger jumped out from behind a wall and I'm motivated away from that tiger, there's a lot of initial energy to get away from that tiger. The problem is, if I have to keep running away from the tiger, that requires a tremendous amount of energy from me. So initially, I get an initial energy burst to get out of the way. But if that keeps going on, it drains my energy very, very quickly. So being motivated away from something in our perceptions is an absolute energy drain, and it will drain down your cell bars faster than anything else. Now, the next step up is motivated towards. So instead of being motivated away from the tiger, I'm being motivated towards jumping over a wall, let's say. But in order to do that, the tiger really can't exist anymore because I'm still thinking about the tiger. It affects how I jump over the wall. So being motivated towards something, like being motivated towards helping people live better lives, or motivated towards helping people leave the hospital walking, or motivated towards helping people be independent when they leave the hospital. Really, if that becomes your primary focus, that you're motivated towards something. Now, this is a slower initial energy to get it going because it takes a little bit of thought to get it going. Like I'm going to face in that direction. And it's not as energy depleting as being motivated away, but it still does require energy. You can think about it being motivated if you're on a diet and you're motivated towards losing 20 pounds or something like that, then every day it takes energy to get on the treadmill, or every day to get out through the walk. It takes energy to change your food habits or whatever it is. So there still takes energy to move towards something. So it's better than being motivated to move away, but it's not as good as the next one. But it does put us in the right direction. So the reason I'm asking this, so right now, if you feel like you're motivated away from something, like if you're trying not to have things happen during the day, that's taking a lot of energy. Start to look more towards, what do I want to happen during the day? What can I act in a positive way to move towards? Now, neither one of those is as energizing as being motivated by something, being motivated by something. Now, when we're motivated by something, it takes, again, a little bit of a moderate amount of initial energy to get it going, because we have to be reflective in terms of what is our purpose? What is infusing everything that we do? And we have to remember too, the motivation, if you break that word down, it's my reason for acting, right? My reason for moving. So what reasons am I doing things? Is my reason because I'm motivated away from something? Are the reasons because I'm motivated towards something? Or are the reasons because I'm motivated by something? And when someone is motivated by something, it fuels them from within. It doesn't require energy. It actually gives us energy in terms of moving forward in a more positive way. So when we do this work with people, we use a tool, called Motivational Mapping. And Motivational Mapping has 9 different individual motivators that make up a person's motivational profile, if you will. Now, everyone has all 9 of these, but they're all in different orders of importance, levels of intensity, degrees of opposition, and also degrees of satisfaction. So you might kind of look at this and say, hey, you know, I might be I might have a high director, or I might have a high expert, or I might have a high spirit, I might have a high searcher. And I'll show you what this means in just a slide in just a second. But what we do know is for all the maps I've done on healthcare professionals, including nurses, everyone has searcher, which is in this lower right-hand corner down here, as their top motivator, maybe their second one, but it's always 1 or 2. So what the searcher is really motivated by is making a positive difference in someone else's life, providing worthwhile things, making a difference. And this is why people go into healthcare, because this is the primary driver that gives them energy, by helping people, by loving to help other people's lives get better. But there's a dark side to this. I have to let you know that also people who have very high searcher energies is associated with the highest levels of burnout, because we are so into giving for other people that we neglect ourselves. And again, Eileen talked about this just a little bit earlier. And when we neglect ourselves, that just erodes our capacity to give more. Now, that's like an intellectual way to think about it, but on a practical level, there's something driving us to continue giving so much. And when it's a very high value for us, it's really hard to reprogram and remodify that, but it's not impossible. So when we work with healthcare professionals, you might say, hey, yeah, I'm a searcher, I'm looking at this right now. My advice is to look at what you think would be your number 2, 3, or 4, because that's where it becomes different. So as a manager in a nursing, on a nursing floor, you know, you might look around and go, everybody cares about making a difference that we're working with, but one person is going to be more motivated by that expert driver. Somebody else is going to be more motivated by the friend driver, by belonging and fulfilling relationships. Somebody else is going to be more motivated by the star driver. So when you begin to know individually your people and what makes them tick in order to make the bigger difference, this is how you start to fuel the energy on your teams and in your organizations, like you're plugging everybody into their phone every single day. You are charging up their batteries so that they have better connection, better communication, and ultimately better empathy and compassion. So, you know, go ahead and just take kind of a look at those and see, hey, where do you think that you fall in there? I'm really curious. You can pop them in the chat. What resonates for you on this? And so I know searcher, we know that one for most people, but what do you think that your second, third, and fourth ones are? And I'll keep cooking along. So when we do a motivational map assessment, which is it's an assessment that's done online, it takes about 12 to 15 minutes to do. What we can find out are people's, what we call their cluster analysis, or what are their primary cluster energies, growth, achievement, or relationship. And that tells us a lot about how this person sees the world and how they move through the world and why they do certain things the way they do. Now, here's an interesting thing is, if we don't know why someone else does what they do, we will always project why we do what we do onto them. And when they do something that we don't understand, we go, why are they doing that? That's not the way I would do it. Well, of course, it's not the way you would do it, because they're not you, they're them. So when we understand better who they are, by looking at their profiles, we can communicate to them in a more effective way. We can understand more about what makes other people really tick, what gives them energy, what turns up their cell phone. So we also see what a person's motivational profile is. So all 9 of those elements, what ratios are important to those people. From looking at that profile, we can tell what fuels people, we can tell what drains people, and we can tell where people have conflict also. Conflict not only within themselves, but where they have conflict within their teams and their organizations. Oftentimes we say that we don't see personality conflicts on teams, we see motivational conflicts. We don't see personality conflicts, we see motivational conflicts. And we see those conflicts because in some way we think that energy is a finite resource, and we're kind of fighting for our ideas or what we think is the best way to go. What we're really fighting for is energy, which we don't have to when we understand this model. We're also looking at people's overall motivation. How motivated are they? How much energy do they have in the system? So when we look at this and we get a number, this person says 90 here, but people will have motivation anywhere from 0 to 100. This is how we can tell how many bars someone has turned on their cell phone. And we can talk to them about it, ask them, how can we help increase your energy, increase the bars that you have on your phone, so we can have better connection and communication with what it is that you do. So I kind of lost track of time. I'm sure I'm kind of getting close, but I just wanted to say, so here's the things that you want to remember, okay? Remember this. Remember those 3 elements of the blackout zone. How much energy is there? Is there a lack of energy? So if you notice that something's off in your teams and in your organizations, ask yourself these 3 questions. What is the level of energy? Is it depleted or is it frazzed out? Like, is it way too low, or are we like short circuiting here and we're going to start a fire? Ask yourself those things. And then, know that you have to moderate that energy. You have to get it back into the place where it's fully charged, but not overheating. All right, next thing is, what's the communication like going on? Are we getting the, hey, can you please go to check out the person in room, they need this much medication, make sure to not do, and whatever you do, don't do, right? I mean, so you can't have that happen. You have to have the clear communication. And then allow that to then move into the idea of empathy and compassion. So always check those 3 things. The next thing you want to ask yourself is, if you're running too hot, if the phone is overcharged, ask yourself, have we been motivated away from something? Are we being motivated away from something? Because that will overheat the batteries and then crash it, okay? If you get the question on that, next question is, wait, what could we be motivated towards? Rather than being motivated away from something, what could we look towards to be motivated in that direction? Because by definition, if we're motivated towards something, we're motivated away from is going to take care of itself. Even better than that, what are we really motivated by? What are we motivated by as individuals? And what are we motivated by as a team or an organization? And how can we find out more about that? If you'd like to find more out about that, please reach out. Happy to help anytime. My name is Brian Trzaskos. Find me at btrzaskos@newwavehealth.com. And you can also check out more information about the motivational maps, if you like, at motivationbeyondmeasure.com/maps. So it's all right there on the screen for you. Dr. Giuseppina, are we out of, I'm happy to take a couple of questions, but I don't want to flow into someone else's time space if I'm over.